What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the 4-4 Football YouTube channel. Welcome back to another matchups video where I, Hutch LeBron, deliver you matchups that I love, hate, or just want to talk about in fantasy football for this week. Before I get in this video, I appreciate if you subscribe to this YouTube channel and click that little notification bell so you'll be notified every single time a new video does drop. Also, check out the 4-4 website, 44.com/plans. Check out that plans page. And on this plans page, you're going to be able to find a ton of awesome fantasy football content. It's going to cost you a little bit, of money. But if you want a discount, you should use the secret code I'm about to give you. Use the code YouTube for 25% off. Again, use the code YouTube for 25% off any plan you choose. So without further ado, let's get into this. Remember, these are matchups I love, hate, or just want to talk about for fantasy football for this week. The first one, we're going to talk about a matchup I like for a certain quarterback. You can potentially stream him off your waiver wire. He's available in about 50% of leagues. He's also could be on your bench. I really like Matthew Stafford this week. For those who have lost quarterbacks, Justin Herbert's injured now. So if you've lost a quarterback, Matthew Stafford is an option you can go for. He's 3 straight QB1 weeks. He's been passing the ball a ton lately. Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp have both been on fire as of late after a rough month and a half for a bit there in the middle of the season. They've been on fire lately. And they get the Washington secondary this week. The Washington secondary is arguably the worst in the league. They are bottom 3 in terms of fantasy points allowed to wide receivers, and they are bottom 5 in terms of fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks. They're a pretty bad secondary. So Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, and Cooper Kupp, they're all going to cook this week. All 3 of them are fantastic starts. Obviously, you're starting Kupp. Obviously, you're starting Nacua. Those 2 are studs. But Stafford is a player that, especially in a one quarterback league, isn't really started as often. He's a great QB1 option this week. Looking towards a bench, a player I don't really love this week. I talked about this player last week, and it worked out. He didn't have a great game. I'm talking about Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson is going to play, so he's going to be back off that chest. I mean, at least that's what he told reporters. He has told reporters that he's going to be back, so we're going to assume he's back. And even if he is back, Jordan Addison's still a questionable play. If Justin Jefferson's not back, Jordan Addison, you can play him as a flex, but a desperate flex. Justin Jefferson's back. I just don't really want much to do with Addison. Even in the times Jefferson was out, like Addison wasn't great. And this week it's Nick Mullins starting over Joshua Dobbs, and we have no idea what that's going to do for fantasy football. We know Nick Mullins loved his relationship with George Kittle. Them 2 in San Francisco did well whenever they're on the field together. I think that's going to bond well with Hockenson. Him and Hockenson are going to have a good relationship. And then Justin Jefferson, if he's playing, is a stud. I think Addison is, yet again, like I said last week, he's going to be the odd man out here with Nick Mullins. So I'm quite concerned about Jordan Addison. I would try to bench him this week if you can. And looking at another quarterback streaming option I like this week, I want to talk about Joe Flacco. I mean, the veteran has come in and he's freaking dominated. I mean, he's had 40+ pass attempts and 2+ touchdowns in each of his last 2 games. And this past week, this coming week, he gets the Bears defense. I mean, what's not to like about that? Like, the Bears defense has been pretty weak all season, and they're not fighting for much anymore. They're pretty much eliminated from the playoffs. So they're going to be fine with Flacco beating them. And I think he's going to have a great game. So looking towards another bench this week, I am looking at Cole Kmet. I don't really love Cole Kmet this week. He's played 2 top 10 tight end defenses this year, and in those games, he scored under 10 PPR points in both. He hasn't been very involved in the offense in both. And while he has been good lately, I would expect him a down week. He gets Cleveland, and their defense has been locked down against the tight end. They're number 2 on the year in terms of fantasy points allowed to the tight end position. So if the Bears offense isn't going to have a good day, which is probably likely here, given that they play the Browns defense, Cole Kmet is likely going to struggle. So then looking at the Seattle receiving room, all 3 of these guys are plays this week. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jack Smith-Njigba are all relevant fantasy football plays this week. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett more as a, mid to high wide receiver 2s, and then Jack Smith-Njigba is a solid flex option. They can play the Philly defense. The Philly defense is the worst in the NFL in terms of fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. They have one of the worst secondaries in the entire National Football League. And it's just so clear every single week that wide receivers just go off against them. It's every single week it happens. As an Eagles fan, it sucks to watch. But DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jack Smith-Njigba are all going to go off. I would hope Geno Smith is back this week. If he is not, then I would just give a slight downgrade to all 3 of these players. And if Geno Smith is starting, I'm really, really confident in all 3 of them. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf's high wide receiver 2s, and JSN is like a flex. Next one we want to talk about, this is a wide receiver who's very on and off. There have been tons of memes on him on Twitter because some weeks he scores 0, some weeks he gives you 20. I'm talking about Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis is somebody that I think you can start this week. That's right. It's the fantasy playoffs. And look, the fantasy football playoffs, everyone's going to talk about, I want to play a safer player, though. I don't want to play Gabe Davis. He's too risky. Guys, it's the fantasy football playoffs. You go big or you go home. He gets a Dallas defense, and the Dallas defense is good against wide receivers, but this should be a really high-scoring game. Dallas's offense has been completely on fire. Dak Prescott's an MVP candidate right now, and they just went off against Philadelphia, even though Dak Prescott didn't even have a great game. And now they get Buffalo, whose run defense has been struggling a lot this year. They have some injuries in the secondary. Von Miller hasn't been playing well for them. Like they have a lot of weaknesses on defense. I think Dallas is going to take advantage. And Buffalo, as a result, who has been playing better as of the last couple of weeks, is going to have to catch up and keep with them. And that means Gabe Davis is going to have to be very involved in the offense. So I expect at least 5+ targets. And I expect a couple deep shots too. If they're going to want to keep up, they're going to have to throw it deep. And Gabe Davis is going to be there all day long. So looking at the Rams Commanders game again, I like Matthew Stafford as a start. I also like Logan Thomas. I think Logan Thomas is an interesting start this week. The Rams are super weak against tight end. When you look at tight ends matchups going against them, they are just tight ends tear up the Rams. They really, really do. And Logan Thomas this year has been fantasy relevant at plenty of points this season. If he's on the field healthy, we know the Commanders like to toss the ball around a ton. They lead the league in pass attempts. Sam Howell's one of the league leaders in passing yards. Logan Thomas is going to be plenty relevant, and he's a good tight end start if you really need one. And let's look at the defensive streamers here to wrap up this. So the Atlanta defense, they're very solid. They're a very solid defense. They've shown a lot of strength this year, and they get Bryce Young. I mean, that's just easy as that. Bryce Young has been struggling this year a ton. He turns the ball over. He fumbles. He loses the football. The receiving room is terrible. The running back room is terrible. The offensive line is disastrous. Everything about this offense is disastrous so far this year. Bryce Young is going to have a really bad day. So Atlanta Falcons defense is a must play. And then the Bengals defense gets Minnesota. They're not a spectacular defense, but you look at fantasy points, they're actually middle of the pack. And Minnesota's offense this week is now transferring to a new quarterback. You have Justin Jefferson coming off an injury. And we have no idea how this offense is going to work, if it's going to work at all. So I'm gonna play the Bengals defense. If you really need a streamer, they're one you can look at. All right, but that's gonna be it for this video today. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I appreciate you lots. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel and click that notification bell to be notified every single time a new video comes out. And again, check out 44.com, check out that plans page, and sign up for a plan using the code YouTube to get 25% off. And follow me on Twitter. I'm at HutchinsonB_FF. We'll see you next week with a transactions video.